Good day, Servan. I am Rika Minane from BSE English 1A. The interaction and acquisition of language in early life, as the title suggests, is central to the content of the article. It discusses the many perspectives and theories of various authors and well-known individuals in this discipline. The author's concept of the infant as social being is that the child acts in a way that teach the caregivers how to teach themselves how to do for him what they believe he needs. The carers view his actions as a reflection of his social wants and desires. As he becomes physically independent of the caregivers and more reliant on social and linguistic direction and experience, his acquisition and use of language becomes increasingly important. Under the age of 1 year, the young infant acts in a sociable and socializing manner toward its caregivers. In language development, the caregiver-infant interaction is crucial because it provides the kid with a set of symbolic experiences that are gradually sculpted into inner, silent speech and thinking. In reality, the carer, as a significant other, supplies the infant with verbal and visual cues that elicit the child's verbal and visual responses as well as the activity patterns. As a result, the child's significant others become crucial players in the language learning process. Their positive, negative, or indifferent responses to the child's noises and utterances give the stimulus feedback that leads to the child's sound patterning converge. The, the objective of this article, which I believe is very essential in our lives, is to provide us with knowledge on how children acquire language and the value of interacting with children by demonstrating many theories and various authors on the subject. It also discusses the importance of a carer, such as parents, in their child's early language development. I believe that the article is pertinent to the Filipino context because some Filipinos already engage their children at a young age and teach them some terms that aid in their language development. The transformation model of language acquisition tries to explain how native language speakers can rearrange parts in their native tongue. It recognizes substitution, displacement, permutation, and other operations. These processes are thought to be linguistic universals, appearing in all known languages. This can be classified as a contemporary theory of language acquisition. The following are critical points addressed in this article. A quick critique of the transformational grammar position will be provided. Second, a perspective on the child's social and socializing interaction with the caregiver will be presented. Third, a perspective on language acquisition will be explored that is based on historical and comparative data from pre-literate societies and cultures. I agree with you on these points because they are still relevant today. Theoretical grammar is a theory that should be able to distinguish sentences from non-sentences, give degrees of deviance to non-sentences, length sentences structures to both meanings and sounds, and account for or create all conceivable sentences in the language. It is an attempt to explain how people, usually linguists in ideal situations, can make grammatical judgments, identify grammatical relations, and so on, while theory of language in use must account for how the infant acquires, improvises on, and uses the linguistic symbols, meanings, and utterances it receives. It must be a formulation that takes into account both nonverbal and vocal gestures. It is necessary to provide a definition of language that is not strictly grammatical. More than just syntax, semantics, and morphology make up language. The article discusses the following types of linguistic behavior: silent vocal speech, which is defined as thought; public verbal utterances; which are described as speech, and paralinguistic gestures, which include facial motions, smiles, nods, frowns, and body movements. Lewis San as an example of how he acquired the meaning of the word no. It is critical to provide stimulus feedback to the youngster because it causes the child's sound patterns to converge. As a result of these convergences in reaction, the kid begins to associate specific sounds with words, things, circumstances, activities, and so on. Language acquisition and early childhood socialization models that are not based on biological determinism. Deep structural possessions are a strict development chronological age phase model. Language acquisition in a transformational model. Chomsky argued firmly in his review Skinner's verbal behavior that a classic and strict stimulus reinforcement model of language acquisition could not explain for how a kid comes to understand the concepts of grammar that allow for faultless linguistic utterances. The left-right linguistic reinforcement model cannot explain the formation of new utterances, nor can it explain why many sequences of words have no inherent left-right order. The caretaker's understanding, sense, and experience of the social order is symbolically transmitted to the early infant through verbal and paralinguistic acts. The following is a model of language acquisition that possesses the influence of the significant other on the child's linguistic skills. The youngster responds to visual and verbal stimuli provided by the significant other. Only one important other, usually the mother, is considered in a three-phase model of language learning and engagement. The role of the absent other, as well as the roles of several others, have not been explored. Behaviorism, innateness, cognition, interaction, usage-based theory, optimal theory, and the native language magnet model are all terms used to describe how people behave. This theory belongs in this category because it influences how a kid learns, improvises with, and uses linguistic symbols, meanings, and utterances from a young age. Aside from that, the significance of interaction in a child's life. After reading the article, I see that interaction between the infant and the caregiver is critical because it provides the child with a set of symbolic experiences that are gradually molded into inner, silent speech and thought, as well as the necessity of feedback in language learning. Their positive, negative, or indifferent responses to the child's noises and utterances give the stimulus feedback that leads to the child's sound patterning convergence. If a child receives particular returns, there is a good chance that they will remember the things they say since someone hears them and responds to what they say or utter. Finally, oral communication contains a range of specific traits that are relevant to the language learning process in childhood, as described by Goody and Watt. The link between symbols and reference is straightforward. And I think that's all. Thank you.